Welcome to the Day's Explainer. Okay, we're just going to dive right into this because honestly, we're looking at an absolutely unprecedented business transformation story today. If you follow the personal care and preventative healthcare space in India, you know it's currently experiencing some massive structural tailwinds, right? Consumers are getting way more aware, they're leaning heavily toward premium products, and the whole landscape is just shifting rapidly. But even in that fast-paced environment, there's one company executing a pivot so disciplined and honestly so successful, it's making the entire market do a double take. So today, we're breaking down Cupid Limited and their phenomenal start to fiscal year 2027. We'll map out exactly how they're aggressively penetrating the B2C FMCG market, expanding their capacity, and most importantly, how all of this is translating into just staggering financial growth.
195%. I mean, just take a second to let that number sink in. This isn't some 5-year growth trajectory, okay? This is a year-over-year jump. This massive number represents Cupid Limited's phenomenal year-over-year surge in their Q1 FY27 standalone net profit. When a company nearly triples its bottom line in a single quarter, well, it tells us that their underlying strategy isn't just working, it's literally firing on all cylinders. And this kind of explosive growth is exactly why we need to unpack the mechanics behind it.
So, to put the actual scale behind that percentage into perspective, in Q1 of FY26, the standalone net profit was a respectable 15 crore rupees. Contrast that with this most recent quarter's massive 44.2 crore profit. Boom! It's a total blowout quarter that firmly confirms the company's accelerating profitability trajectory. And it doesn't stop at the bottom line. Cupid is actually expecting its Q1 FY27 revenues to cross the 150 crore rupee mark, which makes it one of the absolute strongest quarterly performances in their entire history. So the big question is, how on earth did they get here?
Part 1. Pivoting to premium B2C.
Historically, Cupid operated purely as a contract manufacturer. Now, while that can be a super solid business, it leaves your margins totally subject to cyclical government tenders. You win a contract, great, you have revenue. But then you wait for the next tender and revenue dips. It's kind of volatile. But right now, Cupid is successfully transitioning to capture premium consumer segments through domestic B2C wellness distributions. By transforming into a premium B2C personal health brand, they are radically reducing their dependency on those cyclical tenders. Instead, they're replacing all that volatility with high-quality recurring earnings from everyday consumers who buy their products over and over again.
Now, the really crucial point here is how this transition impacts their financials on a structural level. And that brings us to a beautiful concept called operating leverage. This basically happens when your fixed costs remain relatively stable, but you somehow manage to aggressively scale up your consumer volume. Because Cupid is successfully executing this B2C pivot and pushing way more volume through their system without drastically increasing their fixed overhead, well, the extra revenue flows straight down to the bottom line. This is exactly the engine unleashing that triple-digit 195% bottom line growth we were talking about earlier.
Part 2. The global competitive moat.
This whole defensive foundation is built on some incredibly rare advantages. First off, Cupid enjoys a status that is actually really hard to get. They are the very first company globally to obtain WHO and UNFPA pre-qualification for both male and female condoms. I mean, this isn't just a shiny badge of honor. It officially positions them as a preferred partner for major global wellness initiatives, and it provides a massive defensive moat against international competitors. Second, they're actively executing a multi-year South Africa condom contract. And third, they just have really robust international government order visibility. So even as they're pivoting hard to B2C, their foundational contract manufacturing arm is still there, providing a highly consistent, dependable revenue base that basically funds their wider brand ambitions.
Part 3. Scaling up. Forward guidance and capacity.
Management's internal confidence right now is just undeniable. They've actually raised their full-year FY27 revenue guidance by 10% to over 660 crore rupees. Originally, the target was 600 crore. But because they have such fantastic export order visibility and their B2C channels are just accelerating so fast, they were confident enough to officially upgrade their annual target super early in the fiscal year. I mean, that signals immense internal confidence for sure.
But you don't just upgrade your financial guidance to 660 crore without having the actual physical means to produce the goods, right? Cupid is scaling up right now. Step 1. On July 29, 2026, they announced an additional follow-on investment of $5 million, which is roughly 41.7 crore rupees, into GII Healthcare Investment Limited. This is specifically to strengthen their strategic partnerships. And Step 2, their aggressive manufacturing expansion is completely on track, with the operationalization and commissioning of their brand new Palava manufacturing plant scheduled for the very next quarter. These massive capacity additions are literally the engine that's going to drive those newly upgraded revenue targets.
Part 4. Risks and Market Outlook.
Okay, so looking at the broader picture, you can clearly see a bit of a dichotomy in the market's outlook. On one hand, the bullish triggers are completely undeniable. Institutional confidence is surged, with the foreign institutional investor, or FII stake, rising super sharply in the June 2026 quarter to 4.17%. That's up from just 1.01% in the previous quarter. Plus, on July 11, 2026, Cupid was officially reclassified to the BSE's prestigious Group A, which significantly enhances their market liquidity and overall visibility. However, we do have to balance that against some real commodity and operational risks. Heavy reliance on international government contracts inherently introduces execution timeline volatility. And more importantly, any spikes in global natural rubber prices could absolutely compress their margins. But, and this is a really vital detail to note, Cupid has proactively built a 149-day raw material inventory buffer designed specifically to absorb those short to medium-term price shocks.
Which really brings us to our final takeaway. Think about it. With standalone profits tripling year over year, aggressive capacity expansion at Palava on the immediate horizon, and a strategic B2C pivot completely transforming their earnings quality, is Cupid no longer just a contract manufacturer, but rather the next true FMCG giant in the rapidly growing consumer wellness domain? The runway seems incredibly clear, and it's going to be absolutely fascinating to watch how high this metamorphosis can take them. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and definitely keep your eyes on how this story develops in the quarters to come.